I have this help me help myself philosophy, and it's just not lining up with the medical establishment at this point.
Ulyana, how did you find Carnivore?
Well, thank you, Dave, for having me on. Um, I think an anecdote is so powerful, and I was inspired by so many people who shared just monumental healing journeys with you. So I was actually encouraged to write down my journey. It was a good way to let go of the pain and really forgive any incompetence that I came across and move in on just a new chapter in life. Um, there were really so many nuggets and clues that my body was dropping along the road, and it really was an 8-year journey of healing. It began with a gut dysbiosis. I was on antibiotics for food poisoning while I was on a mission trip overseas, on a couple occasions actually during college. And shortly before my marriage, and the first year of marriage, really, um, I had 6 UTIs, and supposedly one antibiotics had fixed everything, but I just kept having reoccurring UTIs. And not too long after the whole antibiotic spiel, I began to experience panic attacks and anxiety and heart palpitations. If anybody knows how horrible it is, and they just are followed by adrenaline rushes and just heavy limbs and uncontrolled shaking. Um, there were so many nights that I woke my husband up to hold me so that my body could just do its thing, and I just I wanted him to be my safety net in a way while I went through these episodes. And I've later had learned that these were panic and anxiety attacks that I was experiencing. And at this time, my husband, he commuted to work. So I carefully planned my mornings to to avoid the stress, and I just blocked any thoughts of having anxiety attacks. Or I also had a game plan to visit my mother-in-law and to keep myself distracted and out of my head, really. And on one of the episodes, she ended up taking me to urgent care, where I got an EKG, and everything turned out fine. And the urgent care doctor, um, she educated me on anxiety management. So at that point, I began to believe that this is something I have to deal with, and I didn't want to be placed on medications for anxiety or for thyroid medications at the time. Um, I I believe that if I was to implement a coping mechanism to deal with this panic, I should be just fine. And I learned that there are many, many people who had these unexplained panic attacks, and they had mechanisms too. I thought that I'm just one of the many people, and I just have to learn to deal with it. Yeah. In the meantime, though, I had a baby, and it was my firstborn son. He was about 10 months old when I began to notice a very, very unique fatigue. I've never experienced this interesting fatigue. I got to a point where I was counting down to nap time, and I just showed up for the rest of the day, not really being present, but just showing up. I counted down to bedtime, and I was just not there, and I was really foggy, and every bit of energy that I had was focused on this intense fatigue I was experiencing. And I mean, to really put it in words, it's kind of like having your hands tied and you're just unable to scratch an itch, right? Like the whole thing is just your whole being is fixated on this heaviness, and everything became a chore: housework, laundry, cooking, just talking to my husband. It was just a chore. Just being awake at during the day was a chore. Um, it was just a waiting game. When do I go to bed? Right? We have those coffee jokes out there. Like we cope with fatigue and with coffee. Or there's a joke that we drink wine so after a long day with the kids, right? So, but every joke had an underlying truth for me. Um, so I did decide to do some blood work, get some blood work done, and The blood work indicated that I had hypothyroidism, and the clinic staff was just naturally recommending that I start medications. And, of course, I did not take on the recommendations. It just didn't seem right at the time. It was just too quick. The provider, like, she wrote the prescription anyway, saying, like, "Oh, in case I change my mind, like, I can just lean in on the prescription." It's kind of like, "You're gonna fail, so I'm just gonna be there just in case." And at the time, I felt better about the situation 'cause I was kind of this person was very compassionate. And secondly, I felt a bit more empowered because I was not succumbing to what supposedly would be a medication for life. From what I understood at the time, is that you could not get off of hypothyroid medication. So I agreed to another blood work panel in about like 3 months or 6 months time to see if things have leveled out for me. Um, and in that time frame, I got pregnant with my second. And I was kind of just sifted over to OB care, um, where there I learned that hypothyroidism can just level itself out during pregnancy, and this was sort of discouraging that I was shifted over to another care provider, so I was just no longer a concern for this initial provider. I was just kind of being bounced around is what I felt like, and anyhow, shortly after my second son's birth, we had the lockdowns. And naturally though, like I was thinking that I'm having these anxieties over not being able to go to church or like I was maybe I was just, you know, having anxiety over not seeing my family members. We had a death in the family about 3 months going into the lockdown, and I was just relating my anxieties to environmental stress, and I was coping with them. I was coping just fine, just like the urgent care doctor had taught me. And, so my second baby, he was 10 or 11 months old, just like the first one. My anxieties and panic attacks set in again, and they followed by extreme fatigue. And it was just such a familiar fatigue, just such a familiar experience at this point. I didn't really need blood work to confirm that it's hypothyroidism again. And of course, the same pattern. It was just evident around 12 months or so after my third son. And in that time frame, the blood work panel indicated, I guess, a what we call a tertiary pattern where you have hypothyroidism, it levels out, you go into hyper, and it's just a very common pattern that you'd see in Hashimoto's thyroiditis, just as a if it was a autoimmune condition. So this was sort of comforting to know that this is now a symptom. So um, and at that time, I was not coerced and I was not scared into taking medication. I was just being monitored, and my hormone levels were just only a sliver off that sweet spot, you know, that golden standard level. So, like, no one would recommend medication unless your panel showed that you were like off the mark, right? And I think I was just a decimal away from the normal range. And this gave me a false boost of relief. Even though I was not feeling right, like, I still, like, chose to believe my lying eyes in a way. Like, so I was relieved, like, they didn't push me, but, like, yeah, I chose to, like, see, yeah, I'm just a point off, and it's great, you know? Um, so my husband at that time, he was working from home, just like so many other people did during the pandemic. Um, he was very generous. He watched the kids while I took many, many naps, here and there throughout the day. He was generous with his time, and I did think many times that he did not sign up for this. We have 3 kids at that time, and he's giving me naps every chance that I need a nap. He comes in like, yes, get a nap. And my problem, I think, became a sort of an identity. I would refer to it as like my hypothyroidism. And he was there just to hold me. And really, I have a very easy life, Dave. And he was just making my already easy life even easier. And um, on those occasions, I threw myself pity parties, and I felt bad for myself on several occasions. And I mean, this was these were, like, really rough years, but overall, I still had the sense that I should not go on medication, and like I said, those tertiary patterns were just a really big clue, and I wasn't at the conclusion yet that this is treatable, like, I just had a sense, you and I don't believe that I was stubborn, I just thought, "This is a symptom," and in college, I was taught to treat the cause and not the symptom. I studied physical therapy, and so, yeah, like, I just didn't go with it, and the one thing I do regret is just not advocating for myself a little more during that time. I was wondering, like, "Why didn't this click yet?" You know? Um, Anyhow, I saw another family doctor in the same clinic, and to my surprise, he suggested that I download an app to help me calm down, and he suggested that I just practice meditation. And I truly believed that he believed that, um, this was, something different, that this can be fixed without medication. And he was very genuine in his demeanor, and he was very compassionate. He advocated for this meditation app, um, and so that's why I thought perhaps that there was this shared understanding that medication will just veil the true condition. And, um, I also at that day, I remember thinking that I will not find my answer here in conventional medicine. Um, yeah, after this point, I had to admit to myself that I will not be better in, um, in conventional, medicine, and medicine is a business, and I must be a repeat customer, and I will be forever dependent on pharmaceuticals if I go that medicine route, and I didn't wanna live that life. Um, I I have this help me help myself philosophy, and it's just not lining up with the medical establishment at this point, and so on my way out the door that day, I told myself, like, I had to leave conventional medicine in order to heal, and really things began looking in my favor after that. So, by the time I was pregnant with my daughter, kinda skipping forward a little bit, this would be my 4th, the whole household got, one of the virus strains. I think it was the corona strain, and, whichever strain it was, but we were just sick the entire month of December. I called it the month of hell. It was horrible. We were just in one room for an entire month, and so one of those days, my husband was on the end of the couch, I was on the other side, and the children were just spread on the floor, and I just vowed to never be sick like this again. I promised myself to do anything possible to find optimum health. And on January 1st, I started playing around with kefir and fermented cabbage and all of that, and ate just really simple diet. I ate eggs, avocados, meats, salads, um, already just started eliminating foods, without really realizing it. I just did that. I leaned on my research skills. If anything I've learned in college is how to do a good research. So I took a deep dive into hypothyroidism, and I went down this autoimmune rabbit hole. And the autoimmune conditions, at best, they were mentioned in college, but we never took a deep dive, like, just really study as I have that year. So all my free time was just zoned in on furthering my knowledge on hyperthyroidism and other conditions, but mostly hypothyroidism. Um, I was, unfortunately didn't find too much information on hyperthyroidism, but I knew I had that tertiary pattern. I wish I could get more information on that. So, I stumbled upon all sorts of blogs by people who reverse their hypothyroid symptoms with, zinc, selenium, and just other supplements, and just, elimination diets, and so that kind of rerouted me to focus on liver health too, and I happened to find Dr. Berg. So to this day, I think Dr. Berg is a gateway doctor to carnivore. I learned so many health health bits from his short informational videos, and I'm very disappointed, but I'm not surprised that he's being censored at this point, you know? Um, but with more knowledge under my belt, I had this conviction, and there was no way that a woman would give birth only to fall apart in her 20s. Like, this is a fatigue, and this fatigue this heavy, it's not the rite of passage, and Um, I just no longer believe that this was all from a disrupted sleep or too many kids, right? I was not willing to accept that it's normal to have these symptoms after every single child. Um, and I mean, I enjoyed pregnancy because all my hormones were leveled out during pregnancy, but I just really dreaded these recoveries. I just thought like, oh, this due date is coming along, and I'm gonna start having these panic attacks. I have to kind of revert to um, my, um, mechanisms on how I can approach the next level. In every baby, you have more challenges, and I had to just revert to these mechanisms if I was to have a panic attack. I was already preparing my
So,
mind.
did it feel like it was getting worse after each pregnancy, like it was just compounding?
I wouldn't say it was getting worse, but because I already knew how to cope with them, so but they were not getting better. Like, they were not I could cope with the anxieties, but there was just no clues as to whether or not they were getting better. With that, just not being willing to accept my situation, my husband was also very supportive. We desire to have a large family, and I wanted to be present for my children, and I wanted to take delight in my children, and um, I really wanted my children to have a mom who's just mentally and emotionally available, not just someone who shows up and just there, Um, so I believe this is when I had established my why for this radical change that I wanted to take. And so in March, I joined a direct primary care clinic. It had this functional medicine aspect to it. And I had a food sensitivities test that indicated uh, which foods were inflammatory to this leaky gut that I had. It turns out it was eggs. I was eating so many eggs, like 6, 8 eggs a day, and turns out I was sensitive to egg whites and egg yolks, and I'm really glad I took that test 'cause, if I didn't know and I by the time I was on carnivore, I would my plan would have been to eat eggs. It's just cheap and accessible, right? But this was just night and day, and I started to have energy through, the rest of the pregnancy. I was pregnant at the time. Um, and then I had my daughter in June, and I absolutely loved the recovery. The recovery months were so good for the first time. I loved being pregnant, like I said, but this I thought I was going to dread this, and I didn't. I absolutely crushed my recovery. It was just good and positive, and um, what also helped was that there was no unsettling pediatric uh, kind of like there was no unsettling pediatric care with, like the stench of vaccine pushing and all of that for mothers, and I always dreaded the pediatric appointments. Uh, but this was just calm and just a beautiful recovery. We call it the 4th trimester, right? It was a great 4th trimester, I would say. And so, yes, this was my 4th child, but definitely I felt like it was a brand new season of motherhood for me. Um, I have not taken unusual naps. I had no panics. I had no anxieties. And Dave, I was just on paleo at the time. It was, yeah. And the women in this clinic, it was kind of like they took a heavy load off my back, right? It's like, hey, let me just carry that for you. It was just that Good. Just finding that camaraderie was so wonderful for me. So yeah, things were going really well. The blood work, it was showing signs of improvements, and just from that elimination diet, just getting rid of eggs, oh, and almonds. Um, which funny to say, the lactation consultant told me to eat almonds for more milk production. So, yeah, almonds and oatmeal. Anyway, so yeah, things were just really great. And the following February, so it was a year into this, I got just this giant cavity, and I took a deep dive into oral health. By that time, I was thinking, I'm just using food as medicine. I was really confused at the same time too, because I did everything right. I did everything to a T. I ate healthy. I had good oral health. I like there was now I'm just here with this big cavity. What is going on? So I learned that as we go through pregnancy, the mouth environment is more acidic, and as we breastfeed, we tend to lose more calcium. This was also indicated by my blood work. That was I had really low calcium, and the body will pull calcium out of your teeth really to feed the baby. Like the body will do what it needs to do to take care of the baby. Um, so on top of this nutritional demand that I had and that the baby had, and then I had the acidic environment, this was a very favorable environment for bacteria to thrive in. So the teeth became weaker, and then it was more prone to cavities. And this was very common amongst women, pregnant women. It was very enlightening to know that. And at this point, like I said, I was using food as medicine. I thought like, well, hey, could why don't I just look into what food is the best for optimum oral health? And this is when I stumbled upon Dr. Shafee's interview with a dentist, his name Dr. Kevin Stock. They were discussing oral health, and I did not realize the depth of this rabbit hole that I was about to jump in. It was this is really where carnivore had started. Like, just took me 7 years to get here. I was blown away about the all impact of plants and how they're loaded with toxins, and it's their survival tactics, right? Plants can't run away, and they'll just harm you. And of course, they have that defensive side effect. And so, yeah, listening to Dr. Shavy's guest, um, just really it was a hook, line, and sinker for me. And this diet was I was thinking, "This is the answer to my optimum health." And when I had told my provider, what I'm doing, I was 16 days in, she actually said exactly that. She said something along the lines of, like, "Your new goal you have a new goal now, and it is to reach optimum health." And I really felt like 8 years I opened the right door. And and it took me this long, um, and I might have some fear of authority, so I was really skittish about telling her that, but I was really relieved. I was relieved when I told her, and the way she responded to me was really wonderful.
And so when was this? This was this year?
This was of March 10th of 2024. Yeah, yep, so yep, 8 months in, 7 months in now. Yeah, actually, I went all in. And it was a really delicate balance the first 2 months. So there were the 2 weeks of oxalate dumping, and, maybe not many people have it in the very beginning. Some people just begin oxalate dumping later on, but I was about 4 weeks in maybe. Um, I learned about histamine reactions, and, kinda leaned into unaged lamb and grass-fed bison for some time in the very beginning. And of course, like, everybody had their sufferings as far as oxalate dumping goes. I mean, I had kidney stones and gallstones all at the same time with, like, burning diarrhea. It was, like, all at once, just bring it all on me now, Like, I knew it was short-lived. I mean, unfortunately, some people can have that for weeks on end or months, right? Depending on how bad their situation is. But I mean, at one time, I did think, Dave, that this maybe not this probably isn't a diet for me because I was just suffering for a whole week. And so I took a week off to like introduce fresh berries, and I ended up bloated and with the low back pain. And that actually got me right back on the diet. That was evidence that something is working, and I just need to, trust the process, right? So I went on like I went into this lifestyle like cold turkey, and I really would not change it. Some people may benefit from, easing way into the carnivore, but, I have like many others, they have like an all or nothing approach. But and once I formulated my conviction, it kept me going. Um, I mean, I just, taking that deep dive into research on carnivore, I just, I was convicted. Like this is my diet, and seeing how I reacted to berries, um, really and was also evidence, like, that something is going on, and I just trust the process and keep going. And, yeah, and listening to other people and what they go through during these oxalate dumps was also comforting because we are all going through this, and it's different for everybody, and yeah. Yeah. Then, there were a few cheat days, in that initial phase, and even that, like, that taught me that I truly am healing. And after one particular cheat day, I will say that I make a killer cheesecake. And after that, I I made a clear choice to give my body the ultimate environment to heal. And after that, I really have not cheated. It's was probably 2 months in, and that was it. You have to make that choice, and, of course, like, I did hang on to my why. I want to be a healthy mom for my kiddos, right? So, yeah, now, I'm in a very good spot with, this onset, um, with an exceptional I would say, an exceptional fat and protein ratio. I drink well water, and, I do have this love-hate relationship with coffee, but luckily right now I'm on this dairy-free interval for further healing. I just discovered that I cannot tolerate dairy. The casein, the A1, A2 casein, I could not tolerate A1 casein. For some of you who know, A2 is the better option, and I could not tolerate the A2 as well. So no dairy, no butter for me, and I just lean into heavy tallow, and that's it's going really well. And I just hopped on the Lion diet. I have done the Lion diet before, just to address these like bumps on the back of my arms, and um, yeah. And I feel like I don't need to fast, because if you're on carnivore, you're just kind of are always in ketosis. I just I thought maybe there's no need for me to fast, so I have not done any major fasts except for the overnight 12-hour, whichever. So yeah, like eating is really easy for me, and I think on carnivore, overeating is just impossible. Um, it took me a while, but I have developed my satiety receptors. Like my body just does tell me actually, like, oh, you had enough. Like, stop eating now. And I was very surprised that it's actually a normal response. That yeah, it's really great. And
Nice.
yeah. The really big thing though is just I feel like I am nourished, and I'm doing all I can, and I'm providing like the best optimal environment for my body to get into homeostasis. Um, it's really great to have steady energy from 5 in the morning to 9 at night. Um, my children, I mean, their world is so tiny, and I know that my husband and I are the center of their world, and they really need my undivided attention, and I can finally provide that. I can be present and watch them with full attention, and I can just marvel and just delight in my children, and um, watching them grow and have a memory of it. I remember just having a really big brain fog, all like my whole first child's uh, infanthood. I just like unfortunately don't remember if when you have your first child, you just take pictures after pictures of them, and then you have your second child and third child, you kinda take less pictures of the kids, and I'm just so glad that I took pictures and videos of my firstborn because I honestly, like, I've had a huge brain fog that, like, it's really nice to go back and look at pictures of him now. But now I just really glad that I can remember.
Have you retested done any blood work? Do you know what's happening thyroid wise?
Mhm. Yeah, so I did have a, blood test, um, about 3 months ago, and my thyroid hormones are all stable, but I have my, uh, thyroid antibodies were flared up, and that is when I had to stop the dairy. And then here in the next week or so, I will have my next so the 3-month mark for my blood work is coming up, so I'll do have another round of blood work done, see how that goes. Yeah,
But the
yeah.
way you feel, it feels like things are moving in the right direction,
Oh,
right?
yes, absolutely. Yeah, just, having the steady energy. I have not taken a nap in, uh well, I don't remember when the last time I took a nap. And Dave, I have just rambunctious children. My children they have high demands. I mean, I homeschool, and, I have a 6-year-old, a 5-year-old, and then the 2-year-old and a, 16-month-old, and they just always need mama, right? Yeah, and just I'm there. I am there, I'm awake, I'm alert, and, yeah, my husband did not give me a nap for a long time, and I didn't need it. Yeah. And, like, having staggered sleep sometimes, because like, if, I mean, I breastfeed at night too, and, like, I'm not affected by that. I'll wake up in the morning, I'm still refreshed. I can like, move on. It's yeah, it's really just wonderful.
It's awesome. I mean, coming out of that cloud of fatigue to just
Yeah,
having constant energy is really nice, right?
right. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Hmm. So how has this way of eating changed things within the broader family? Like, is your husband kind of following the same eating patterns, or is he doing his own
He
thing?
he's doing his own thing right now. My oldest, he likes it when I explain to him how meat affects your body, and he'll just jump back and forth. Like, I'll be on carnivore with you, and then I'll have a treat with papa, you know? But, yeah, my husband, he sees my healing progress, and he's very supportive. Um he does eat bread and sandwiches, but because I make the meals, he's very heavy on the meat now. Because I get to decide what we have for dinner, so and, it's been a while since I've made, like, potatoes, and just this week I've made potatoes, like, "Hey, it's been a while since I've made vegetables." I don't remember when's the last time I had made vegetables, and I know for sure it was not, like, never during these 8 months of my carnivore, 'cause, like, vegetables take so long to prepare, and I just, like, "This is a waste of time. I don't want to do it." And, like, I just wanna eat my meat and let's move on with our family. Like, our whole family dynamics had changed too. Like, because, like, we're a family, we're always together, we don't have a formal sit-down dinner at this point. We're just, like, we gather around, eat some meat, kinda, like, come and go and eat, and we're just always our dynamics have really shifted. Yeah, like, preparing a meal is not this giant event anymore, you know? Yeah, yeah.
And so typically, how often are you eating during the day?
Oh, really just when I'm hungry, I would say, like, 3 meals, um, yeah, like, 3 meals, if and a lot of times I wake up not hungry, so maybe 2 to 3, um, it just really depends on how much energy I exert the day before or
That energy that you've got now is so important with 4 kids at home and schooling them and still breastfeeding and
yeah. It really is lovely. Um, it's just you're just kind of in this euphoric state, and It's wonderful. I'm really glad that I just went all in. I just I don't think I would want to delay this, sense of calmness that I have now. And Dave, like, my love language is feeding others, um, and if I do still bake for other people outside of my family, and if I do prepare baked goods or a dinner for them, I'm not tempted by these foods anymore, and I do not taste test or anything, and the bloating, the joint pain, the fatigue, it's just not worth it, you know? It's such a setback, and I'm not the mother that I enjoy being when if I was to eat that food. So yeah.
How empowering is it to be able to do that? Be able to, like, have these baked goods in front of you and not feel like you have to eat like,
Oh my
we
goodness.
do in the
Yeah.
past.
It is it is tremendously empowering. Uh, just know, you just don't think about the guilt that you might feel. There's nothing. You're just like, "Yeah, preparing this for my sister-in-law," Just, remember my sister-in-law asked me to, prepare some vegetables for a birthday party. I'm like, "Oh, man, it's taking so long to wash these veggies and cut them up." It took me a long time for myself. Like, I just put, salt and pepper or whatever on my meat and put it in the oven, and this is insane. It just insanity. Yeah. But, like I
Yeah.
do for other people, I bake from scratch, and I get to control what ingredients I place into those baked goods, you know? Yeah. And I think that everybody's on their own health and food journey, and as long as I can control what I can put into their baked goods, that's fine. And, like, once in a while, I can opt out for gifting flowers or bone broth. I make bone broth. My father-in-law gives me bone broth, and it's a great way to love on others in a different way. And I do have to work on kind of undoing the years of traditions of, like, Christmas traditions and other celebrations that are centered around food. And now that is something I can really ease myself into, especially now that there's no temptations.
So, like, what happens Thanksgiving's coming up, no?
Mhm.
I'm not sure the exact holiday. So what happens around Thanksgiving?
Well, this will be our first Thanksgiving with me as a carnivore. Normally, I would make the full Thanksgiving dinner and the bread rolls, the pies, everything. So, yeah, I mean, this is not going to change this year. My husband he's not on the carnivore diet, and, like, I know he will request that Thanksgiving dinner. Like, he's very nostalgic, very his family is very tight knit, and, like, he needs these traditions to stay alive, you know. And I plan to make the whole meal, but I know what I'll be eating, right?
Nice. So has anyone outside of your family asked you about it, noticed, and thought, "Oh, that's a bit strange that you're only eating meat"?
Well, no, I would say no. I think I have a really good support. I have a very good support system. Um, my husband's side of the family, like, they noticed that I would bring, a can of sardines to a football game, or you know, or, like, I would eat just the meat that my sister-in-law prepared at a party, and they don't really. I don't think they look down or question me or anything, but, like, I am very open about my carnivore diet, and, especially when I find, I experience the healing aspect of it. I say, "You know what? I contribute that to the carnivore diet." I do, and I'm very open about it, and people seem to just listen in on it. Sometimes it just comes off foreign, but I just I don't think people hear because they don't hear about it, and it comes off very radical, um, to eat just meat. But once you hear the side of it, how we're physiologically compatible with this diet, and how plants have antioxidants, and how you know don't really absorb the nutrients is, you know, I think they hear things for the first time in a way, and they're kind of blown away, you know?
Yeah. So if someone asked you about it in terms of like, okay, I want to give it a try. I'm skeptical, but I want to give it a try. What
Mhm.
advice would you give them for getting
Oh,
started?
yes, absolutely. I was, actually just talking to my librarian last week about this carnivore diet, and, I would just I'm a big reader, and I would highly recommend, Michelle Hearn's book. It's called The Dietitian's Dilemma. She's are you familiar with her? She's, yeah, yeah, she wrote a very just her book is just written for people from all walks of life. Anybody can understand it, and she explains the carnivore diet really well. And she gives us really great advice on how to get started, and, she's wonderful. I would advise everybody just to read her book, and, if you're more of an auditory learner, I would really just hone in on people's anecdotes. Like, anecdotes are very powerful, and, um, it's actually more powerful than science. If science tells you one thing, but you're experiencing a whole different thing, like, you just, you know.
So, Ulyana, do you have any way of reaching out to you? Do you have any social media or YouTube?
Oh, absolutely. I do have a YouTube channel. It's called Holisticology, and on there you can find my, ways to reach me.
Great. So I'll link to that in the show notes.
Okay.
Ulyana, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your experience. I really appreciate your
Yeah.
time.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you.